Welcome to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast. Established in 2016, the Fintech Times is a global multimedia news outlet centred around the world's first leading fintech newspaper. We report on the latest and brightest ideas from the fintech world. Follow the conversation using hashtag TFD News and Views and follow us at the Fintech Times. Hello, and welcome back to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast brought to you by Vanta. Vanta helps you save time, money and build customer trust, all by centralising programme requirements and evidence collections for frameworks like DORA. If you want to manage risk and prove security, then head to vanta.com/fintechtimes to learn more. It is our last episode of 2024. What a year it's been. I'm here as ever with Francis. Francis, how are you feeling? We're coming to the end of what has been quite a crazy year for News and Views, I think. I feel like we've really got into the flow of what we were doing and just had a good time talking about fintech, right?
Absolutely, it's been a very fun year, and yeah, looking back, I think it's been fun because I feel like we've all gone to a variety of events throughout the year, had a lot of different things to talk about. Obviously, I think the sort of emergence of AI, I know that was really last year, but I think it's really continued into this year. So I think that's sort of shaped a lot of the conversations that we've had, and we've had some really fun guests this year as well. So yeah, no, it's been a good time, and I'm sure 2025 will bring a lot of the same, if not better. So yeah.
Exactly. I think it can only go up from here, which is amazing stuff. But anyway, what are you going to be talking about today? What's your article? Last one of the year.
So the last article of the year that I'm going to be talking about this week is about Ryanair's latest TrueLayer integration, and its pay by bank offering.
Fantastic stuff. And I'm going to talk about today a new report from LGBT Great that has found financial firms must strive for greater inclusion or risk losing valuable talent. I'm going to let you go first this week, so why don't you take it away?
Absolutely. So yeah, the reason this article stood out to me, I think it follows on very nicely from the topic of fraud that we were talking about last week, because I know that we were sort of saying, like, what is the solution to fraud, like the sort of rising fraud problem that we're seeing. And while I'm not saying that pay by bank is the be all end all, the use cases that it sort of provided in this article I found very interesting. So customers using the European airline group Ryanair can now make purchases directly from their banks using pay by bank, which removes the need for debit or credit cards. And this has been made possible following a new partnership with the open banking payments network TrueLayer. So when consumers are looking to book a flight, they can now use a more secure payment system utilizing TrueLayer's open banking services. And this actually comes as the tech's adoption is on the rise in the UK, because in fact, pay by bank has sort of tripled actually to the pay by bank payments have tripled to 21 million in the past 2 years. And that's just a really big achievement and sort of a testament to how impactful and useful the sort of payment service actually is. So, according to the article, and I say according to the article, I'll get back to that in a sec, the service is faster and more secure, and actually a cheaper alternative for merchants than traditional card payments. And this means that Ryanair can save millions of pounds if customers choose to use this payment method instead of traditional ones. So the addition of pay by bank also enhances checkout reliance. And this is where I say that it's really impactful, because it proved invaluable during the CrowdStrike outage, which left travel operators unable to process card payments and caused global losses of over £4 billion. But meanwhile, the merchants that were offering pay by bank continued to receive payments seamlessly. So I wanted to talk about pay by bank for a couple of reasons, because in my opinion, when you're using or making a big purchase like travel tickets, those are really big ticket items that require normally a few months of saving some money. And I think there was an article that we did recently that said people are already sort of putting money aside for their holidays in 2025. And I think that when you're looking to make that sort of payment, so much time has to go into sort of researching what is going to be the best deal for you and what's going to sort of give you the most bang for your buck. And I think that using pay by bank is secure in the sense that it almost takes away a layer of potential fraud, because they need to be verified in order to use it. And I think that sort of adds a security that you know that this is a reliable source, this has been verified. And I'm sure that in time, fraudsters will probably find a way to get around that, to sort of tap into it. But I think the whole idea behind Pay by Bank is that fraudsters can't do that. And I recently tried it actually. I use it when I got a takeaway, um, and I tried out Pay by Bank, and it was good in the sense that it was seamless, but it took a while for things to load on my banking app to sort of authorize it. And because I already had a card saved on the takeaway app, it didn't really sort of save much time. If anything, it sort of made it longer. So, in my opinion, when using Pay by Bank, it will be especially effective when you're not entirely sure if you trust a site or you're a new customer and you want a sort of way to verify that it's legitimate. I think if you see that it's offering Pay by Bank, you can be sure that, it's going to be a safe transaction. And I think that's really where the power and the use of it can come in. But yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on it. How impactful do you think it will be in the travel sector? Because as I say, like for me, big ticket items, that's where it's going to be especially useful. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of get your thoughts on the payment technology and the partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, I think this is going to be really quite significant for the travel sector because, having, realistically, when you're buying a holiday or you're buying travel, you're going to be spending quite a lot of money. And I think, as you said, having that kind of extra security if maybe you don't 100% know the website you're buying from, or extra security when you're making a big purchase is always really, really handy. And I think in this case, it's kind of almost the perfect scenario for pay by bank to be used in the travel industry. And I think it's really interesting. You sort of said about how pay by bank versus paying by card, and if you already have the card details saved, is it like an extra step and that sort of thing. And I wonder how much that's going to come into play here, because even though it is quite fast and streamlined, it's a new thing for people to have to learn, even though they don't really need to learn how to do anything. It's all pretty simple and straightforward. We all know that people are very much creatures of habit, and having a new thing is scary, I think, sometimes to a lot of people, especially when it comes to money and finances and making payments. I think people like the security of something familiar, whether or not it's actually secure in the long run. You know what I mean? So I think it's a very interesting concept. But I think no, I think it's brilliant. We always talk about how payments need to be what's the word? We're always talking about how you need to have a lot of payment methods. We're always talking about how the consumer likes to have lots of different ways to pay, and like you said, after the CrowdStrike outage and that huge situation earlier this year where you couldn't use your cards or process card payments, these kind of payment methods are going to be lifelines. And I think after we had that outage, I think it led a lot more people to sort of think that maybe we need to sort of scale back on our reliance to cards and kind of look at cash in a more view in a better way, and unlike how we have been for the past few years. And I think pay by bank is also going to be another thing that people maybe look at, because it does reduce that reliance on cards, and it means that you can still receive payments even if your card machines are down for whatever reason. So yeah, I think this is a really great thing to see. I think it's great to see more industries just adopting new open banking payment technologies. It's great to see that come up even more, because that's just doing all the good things that open banking kind of promised to do, to make just things easier, make things secure, and, ultimately just do right by both the consumer and the merchants as well. So I'm seeing no downsides to this. I think it's brilliant. And yeah, I hope more industries take it on.
Yeah, I think when we sort of think about it as a payment alternative, I think, like you say, it's sort of excellent, and I think it really is probably going to see quite a lot of adoption. I think the numbers in the article are sort of only the beginning. I think its potential is there, and like I said, in my experience using Pay by Bank, I was impressed by it. I didn't think it bad. It's just as an alternative to some using a card that was already pre-saved. I mean, when you save your card somewhere, it's literally two taps. It's, do you want to make this purchase? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. Done. Whereas this, it required a little bit more authentication to sort of double check that this was me sort of going through it. I mean, it's authorizing it through my bank, so that's a big deal. And I think that you do need that friction there. I don't think we talk about frictionless payments, But I think in this instance, with pay by bank, you need to make sure that there are some measures in place that ensure security. And I think we talk about frictionless, but I think in some instances friction is needed, and I think this is one of those cases. So yeah, as I say, when you're not sure about something, and then sort of as you mentioned as well, when you're not sure about a payment, that's when it will be effective. But if you already have a card saved somewhere, then I don't really see why you'd want to, unless you're very, very paranoid about the internet, which, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, I can't remember when it was, that we grew up in that generation. So I'm sure there are going to be some people that absolutely love this. But for me, it's a very, what's the word, type of situational uh, solution. And while it is good, I don't think it will be used for every single purchase.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I think that's the whole point, isn't it? It's about having the choice and sort of different methods that if you don't want to use it, you don't have to. You've got other methods you can choose. But anyway, let's move on to my article. Very different from talking about payments, but basically, a new report from LGBT Great has found that financial firms must strive for greater inclusion or risk losing valuable talent. So this really struck me actually, as because we talk about diversity and inclusion a lot. You know, we have a whole month sort of dedicated to it in various different ways, and we kind of work with a lot of different stories and articles that come up over the year, sort of celebrating diversity and inclusion. But we always, I think, unintentionally kind of look at it from the consumer point of view, like how can we make fintech work for everyone, like how can we make finance work for everyone, whether that's if you are, you know, in an unbanked population, or maybe if you are disabled and can't access services in a way someone else can access service, or, you know, women and the gender gap and gender disparity and that sort of thing. And I thought this was actually a really interesting one because it is talking about it from actually the almost like the fintech side of things, so the talent side of things, rather than the consumers, and looking at the workforce and how the workforce actually needs to be more diverse and more inclusive for everyone. So that's kind of why I want to talk about it today, because I think it just really struck me as something that maybe I'd never really thought of. That, oh yeah, hang on a minute, that is something that we need to think about. And I think I've also at the sort of earlier in the year, I was also doing a lot with Joanne Dewar, who has been starting all her incredible mission to sort of help make things more diverse in the workplace as well. So I think this kind of really reminded me of that and really struck me to that too. So anyway, this new report from LGBT Great has found that 40% of Gen Z LGBTQ plus professionals do not feel the financial services industry is an ally to the LGBTQ plus community. 23% believe LGBTQ plus talent is not comfortable being out at work, and 23% view the financial services culture as unappealing. Obviously not fantastic and not great to have these kind of numbers, and I think especially um, considering kind of a lot of discourse that's happening at the moment in sort of the LGBTQ plus space, it's not great to hear that, you know, the challenges, I guess, faced by professionals in that community in the workplace, and kind of understanding what the, you know, perceptions and priorities are for them, and how kind of, I guess, their needs aren't being met as talent. And, you know, 22% of LGBTQ plus professionals perceive the financial services industry as not inclusive of all sexual orientations and gender identities, and are 3 times more likely to strongly agree that financial services lacks diversity. So this is, you know, not great. And I think it's really important that we talk about things like this, because being diverse and being inclusive to everyone, I think, is just so important in a lot of ways. And I think, you know, as it said in this instance, it's talking about, you know, the risk of losing talent. And obviously talent is obviously very important, but at the same way, just, you know, making workplaces work for people is so important, and having that culture there is so important. And I guess I don't have a specific question for you, Francis. I just kind of want to know kind of what your thoughts are about this, and, you know, that when we think about talent as well in this way, are these the kind of things that fintech need to be thinking about when it comes to sort of diversity and inclusion and all of that sort of thing? And yeah, I mean, I just love to know your thoughts on the whole situation.
I think one of the stats from the article that really stood out to me was that 64% of LGBTQ plus talent are more likely to apply to organizations that have been assessed for LGBTQ plus sensitivity and inclusion. and as well as 55% of allies. But I think it's really interesting that so many organizations still haven't undergone sort of that assessment and sensitivity sort of training and sort of understanding of how, and why it's so important to have inclusion and have this sort of diversity. And I think if an organization has undergone it and sort of and can show that they have, it's really good because it shows off why talent is welcome and sort of respected and valued at that organization. And then if another organization who hasn't undergone the assessment and sort of wants to acquire that talent, I mean, why would somebody who might not feel that as welcome want to go to somewhere that, you know, like if you've got two options, somewhere that you feel welcomed and somewhere where you don't, why would you go for the latter? It doesn't make sense. And another stat that sort of really stood out to me and sort of made sense is that 63% of individuals feel more comfortable applying when hiring panels include visibly LGBTQ plus individuals and are DE&I trained. And again, this seems so simple, but if you can sort of show someone who has probably had some experiences that they've probably struggled with at times, and if you can sort of show to them like, we understand what you're going through and we want to help you not only in sort of your work life, but in any other sort of aspect that you can. I think that is the most healthy outlook that an organization can have. So I think it really doesn't come as a surprise to me that the sort of stats that the article found. But if anything, it just sort of goes to show that more organizations need to undergo the sort of sensitivity and diversity training and to really show off that they are, you know, it sounds bad to say, but forward thinking. I mean, it seems sort of it shouldn't have to be forward thinking. That should just be normal behavior. But you have to sort of show that you want to be diverse and sort of show that people are welcome. And if you're not doing that, then I think an organization needs to have a serious look at its culture, because I don't think it will survive if that's the attitude that they're going to have. Because diverse talent is the biggest winner in or organizations that have diverse talent, I should say, are the biggest winners in any competition. So yeah, no, it is really sort of interesting to see. And like I said, a lot of the stats that it found really made sense to me. And yeah, like it doesn't, hopefully we'll see sort of more diversity inclusion sort of assessments be undertaken by organizations so that they can sort of acquire this talent and then keep it by sort of showing that they are really good cultures and really good businesses that sort of welcome everyone. um but yeah, no, I thought it was a really interesting article.
Yeah, no, I think you made some really excellent points there, and I love everything that you said. I think it's really important that companies look at their own diversity and inclusion initiatives and make sure they are actually being diverse and inclusive. I think, that's obviously kind of key here. And I think it's really important to shout out about the work that different organizations are doing to help shed light on this. Like, obviously, in this instance, LGBT Great, and a diversity and inclusion organization that are sort of looking to partner with different organizations and actually create meaningful change in the financial services industry. Even if we aren't talking about their sexuality, like as I said before, Joe Dewar and Project Nemo, who are looking at disability inclusion in fintech, is obviously very different, but kind of a similar kind of message here, that it's important to be inclusive and it's important to have that awareness and understand kind of the issues that someone might face, whether they are disabled, whether they are LGBTQ plus, or whether it might be that they still are important, and the culture is really important. So I think it's really important to highlight things like this and actually talk about them a bit more, because then I think it helps with that awareness piece and helps with making it known and making more people actually look at themselves and at their organizations and go, hang on a minute, we don't do this, we should be doing it. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So I think it's really important to have these kind of conversations about things like this.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, as I sort of alluded to earlier, I think it's most important when organizations sort of the amount of talent that they're losing out on by sort of not recognizing the sort of trainings and assessments and just a sort of a cultural mindset of we need to be as inclusive as possible, how do we achieve that so that we can make our company as enticing as possible for the broadest amount of ideas to sort of be brought in, and then that way we can sort of create the most sort of innovative sphere, because you have all these different opinions that you might not have otherwise, because there just wasn't a reason that somebody might want to go to somewhere that just isn't diverse and sort of welcoming to them for whatever reason, like you say, sort of sexuality, disability, gender, race, whatever it might be. So yeah, I think it's really important, and hopefully we'll see a lot of that in the coming year.
Absolutely. And what better time to sort of reset and think about these things as we're going into the new year. So hopefully 2025 will bring on a lot of reflection and a lot of change and a lot of action in these kind of areas. So that's a great thing to hope for. But anyway, that does bring us to the end of our discussion today for the last time in 2024. So thank you so much, Francis, for talking with me about fintech. If you want to hear any more about anything we've talked about today, or anything else about fintech for that matter, head on over to fintechtimes.com, where you can read plenty more news and insights over there. And instead of what I learned this week, I'm completely springing this on you, Francis, because I didn't tell you I was going to do this before we started recording, but don't worry, it's nice. Normally, we share some nice things, that some stats or information that we've learned each week. But since it was the last one of 2024, I thought it would be nice to share perhaps a lovely memory from being at the Fintech Times this year, or maybe like a standout thing you've worked on, just something about 2024 that you really, really enjoyed, Francis. Perhaps a memory of going to an event, or maybe just a really cool piece that you worked on, anything at all. And again, apologies, I completely sprung this on you, but I just had the idea like 5 minutes ago, so you're welcome.
Well, immediately a couple sort of come to mind. I think I've had some mental health issues over the past few years, which has sort of meant that I haven't been able to go to as many events as I perhaps wanted to. But luckily, for countless reasons, my anxiety has gotten better, and I've been able to attend events. And so I think that probably in February I attended one this year, and that was sort of a standout for me, sort of an accomplishment to be able to sort of be back and, you know, really doing every aspect of my job that I want to do. And then there was I can't remember actually what the name of it was. I think there was one in April afterwards where the entire team went, and it was nice to see everyone again who I haven't seen in a long time. So those would probably be some of the biggest standout things for me. I mean, from a fintech point of view, I think it's quite cool that Bitcoin's hit 100K. But other than that, that's quite recent. But I think in terms of actually sort of accomplishments for the year, that's probably up there for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's always going to the events is, I think, always very nice, because it means we actually get to excuse me, actually get to see each other again. So one of mine is going to, I think it was Innovate Finance in April, and we just kind of like hung out at Innovate Finance with like me, you, Tom, and Dom was there as well, our producer, and that was just a full vibe. And then another one, weirdly, was actually in Money 2020 in Amsterdam, which sadly, Francis, you weren't there, but it was me, Dom, our head of production, Tom, who obviously is not with us this week, and Claire, our editor. And we basically were trying a new thing for like our video, doing like a really cool walking shot to go into like the mini documentary that we were making about Money 2020. And that was just such a fun 20 minutes of like trying to figure out the shot. Tom was on the boom mic, and Claire was like holding things, and that was just a hilarious half an hour of trying to figure out how to be sort of a professional production team, and it looked sick. So that was a really stand-up memory for me. But I think 2024 has been such a great year, and hopefully we'll do it all again in 2025. So thank you so much, Francis, for joining me once again. Sadly, yes, Tom could not be here, but we will get him back in the new year, and we'll get the gang back together again. But yeah, for now, I'll catch you on the next one.
I'll see you in the new year.
Thanks for listening to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast. Don't miss next week's episode, and continue the conversation using #TFT News and Views, and follow us at the Fintech Times.